Russian Foreign Minister Lavrov warns of a new war, specifically naming Germany, the UK, and France.
At a recent international event, Russian Foreign Minister Sergey Lavrov unexpectedly issued a warning about a major war, directly accusing three major European powers. Western political and military alliances have not brought stability or security to the region, and now many members of these blocs are preparing for a new large-scale war, Russia's RT news outlet quoted Lavrov as saying. The statement was made on April 12th during a Q&A session at the Antalya Diplomacy Forum held in Turkey. Lavrov criticized what he referred to as Western political and military alliances, including the European Union, EU, the Organization for Security and Cooperation in Europe, OSCE, and the North Atlantic Treaty Organization, NATO. He argued that these organizations have ultimately failed to achieve the goals they declared at their founding. Since World War II, security issues in our common region have been addressed according to the views and interests of the West. NATO and the EU are the leading alliances driving this, deeply rooted in European identity, Lavrov stated. Recently, the EU signed a cooperation agreement with NATO and has now become part of the West's joint policy. This is clearly reflected in the EU's willingness to allow NATO to use its territory to carry out expansion plans toward the east, south, or other regions, Lavrov added, seemingly referring to the EU-NATO joint declaration signed in early 2023. Lavrov argued that instead of bringing security as originally intended, Western countries have escalated tensions and contributed to the remilitarization of Europe. Now they are fully preparing for a new war. Germany, France, and the UK are leading this effort, the Russian foreign minister stated. His remarks came after a recent meeting of the Voluntary Coalition, a group of countries supporting Ukraine, mainly composed of NATO and EU member states. During the meeting, defense ministers discussed the possibility of deploying a peacekeeping force to Ukraine, an idea reportedly proposed by the UK and France. However, according to RT, the meeting did not yield any concrete results. The EU's High Representative for Foreign Affairs, Kaja Kallas, acknowledged that member states have differing views and discussions are still ongoing. UK Defence Secretary John Healey asserted that the plan had been fairly well developed, but several of his counterparts openly expressed doubts about the objectives, mission, and legality of deploying such a force. Moscow has repeatedly warned the West against deploying troops to Ukraine in any form, particularly opposing the presence of forces from NATO countries. Last month, Russian Security Council Deputy Chairman Dmitry Medvedev stated that if NATO peacekeeping forces appear in Ukraine, it could lead to a war between the military bloc and Russia.